Hey everyone, it's Anthony from Pretty Printer here. In today's video, I'm going to continue where I left off in the last video using Flask-Bootstrap. In the last video, I showed you how to get Flask-Bootstrap working for your app and how to use the different blocks to add your content. In this video, I'll show you how to use Flask-Bootstrap with Flask-WTForms. So I'm using code I wrote about a year ago in a different video on Flask-WTForms. So if you haven't seen that video already, I'll put a link to that video in the description below so you can take a look at it first before you come back to this one, because this will make a lot more sense if you watch that video first. So I have all the code for the form that I created, which is a basic form. It has an email field and a password field, and it has some validators on it, so they can only submit the form if the validators pass. So let me run it and just show you what I have. So I have a plain looking form, and because I didn't put in a valid email address, it tells me I don't like your email, which is the message that I chose to put. And because the password isn't either secret or password, it denies the form. So if I put in an actual email address like test@test.com and then I'll put secret as the password, it will let me successfully submit the form. But this is pretty ugly, as you can see, so I want to use Flask-Bootstrap to make this look pretty. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to convert this example that I have here. So here's the Flask code, here's the template, and here's a form helper that I used in the first video. I'm going to convert this all over to Flask-Bootstrap. So the first thing you need to know is the form helpers I don't need, so I'm just going to close that out because I won't be using this render field that I created in the video that I demonstrated Flask-WTForms. I'm going to use some built-in functionality from Flask-Bootstrap. So just make sure you have Flask-WTForms installed, of course, along with Flask-Bootstrap, and you'll be able to do everything here. So it's pretty simple. The first thing you need to do is import Flask-Bootstrap. So from Flask_Bootstrap, I'm going to import Bootstrap. And like I showed you in the previous video, the only thing you have to do to initialize it is pass the app to this Bootstrap class to instantiate it. So I'll save that. And now what I need to do is I need to convert this over to Flask-Bootstrap. So like I said, I don't need the form helper anymore, render field, so I'm going to get rid of that. And what I need to do is I need to extend the base Bootstrap template like I showed you in the previous video. So extends Bootstrap. I can never spell Bootstrap correctly. So Bootstrap. And then I'm going to include a module, in a sense, that has some functions that allow me to use Flask-WTForms using Flask-Bootstrap. So I'm going to import Bootstrap/WTF HTML. And that's it. So now I have what I need. Now I need to convert this over. So if you recall from the last video, I don't get to use these HTML tags directly anymore because Flask-Bootstrap takes care of them. So what I do instead is I use blocks. So the first block I need to use is the title block. So I'm going to add a block for title. And I don't need to extend anything, so I won't be using super. So in block here. And I'll just take this title WTForms and I'll put it inside of the title block up here. And now I can get rid of everything up to the head. Whoops, that's too much. Everything up to this point. So I have the body and I can get rid of the HTML. And like I showed you in the last video, the body is taken care of by Flask-Bootstrap. So what I need to do is I'll create a block called content, and I'll in the block. And inside of the block, I'll put what goes in the body. So I'll copy this form and I'll put it in the body. So now that I have this here, there are two different ways of using Flask-WTForms inside of Flask-Bootstrap. I'll show you the long way first. So I already have these render fields from the previous Flask-WTForms tutorial. Like I said, I won't be using those, but instead I can use something from the WTF.html that's included in Flask-Bootstrap. So instead of render field, I'm going to simply change this to WTF.form field. and this is included in the Flask-Bootstrap. And I'll save it, and then this will actually generate the form for me. So before I show this, let me just add a container. So div class container, and then I'll close out the div down here, because in Bootstrap it's helpful to have a container. So now server is running. I'll refresh the page, and let's see. Expected token as got end of statement block. So I must have made an import error somewhere, and I did. So import bootstrap /wtf.html. I have to import that as something. I need to give it an alias, and the alias that I intended to give it but I didn't was WTF. So import bootstrap WTF.html as WTF, and that allows me to use WTF.form field. So I'll save that and I'll refresh again. Okay, so now you see how it's styled differently. It's no longer ugly like it was before. And I have this login button that's ugly, so I'll go over here and I'll find a good class for the button. Let's say primary. So I'll just copy this class, and I will add it to the submit button. So I'll save that and refresh my page. And now it looks like a Bootstrap form. So if I do the same thing, if I just put random stuff in here, and click login, it tells me it doesn't like my email, and it says that the password is an invalid value. This is exactly the same functionality as the original form that I had, but it just looks a lot better. So if I put in a real email address and I put a valid password, it allows me to submit the form. So that was the long way of doing it. The shorter way of doing it is to simply use the quick form. So I can take away this form that's cross-site request forgery token, and I can take away the two fields. So I'll do that. I'll leave the button, and I'll simply do WTF.quick, can't spell quick underscore form, and I'll pass in the form. I'll save it, and then I'll refresh, and we see we get the same thing. So it's the exact same form. It's just not as much code to generate the form. And I just realized I don't need the title tags in the title, so I'll take that out because it was messing up. But everything else is fine. So you can use the quick form, or you can use the individual fields. So you use the individual fields when you want to have more control over what it looks like, and you use the quick form when you just don't care that much. So in the Flask-Bootstrap docs, there's a short section on using Flask-WTForms. I'll link this in the description below so you can take a look at it. It's pretty simple. Like I said, if you want the quick form functionality, if you don't really care about customizing your form much, use the quick form. And if you want more control over it, then you use the form field. So that's it for this video. If you want me to do a more complicated example, or you just have any questions about this in general, you can leave a comment down in the description below, or in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for watching this video, and I will talk to you next time.